I've done a quick, what I call quick medical precision move myself here too as well. But for people out there who are seeing a lot of these things, they ask you questions about. I had a doctor tell me one time, he said that a lot of these commercials on TV are actually quite frustrating for the medical professionals because people are making promises on TV or near promises, and these are things that can't be done. And of course, people come in and they say, but I need to do this. I want this. I saw it on TV. And it's a real challenge because some of the people on TV appear to be respectable.
I think that's exactly right. The first thing you mentioned is that direct to consumer advertising. I think that has caused, it's opened up a dialogue between patients and their providers, and I think that's a good thing. But it does sometimes elevate certain medications to a status that they really don't deserve. But then talking about weight loss specifically, and about how sometimes there are some individuals on TV or even on the radio, perhaps that will suggest these supplements with miraculous claims. We hear about things like Garcinia cambrosia. That's a recent one. Raspberry ketones, green coffee bean, and green tea extract are in the news as of late. So specifically, I wanted to talk about a couple of those and some of the research that is there and actually isn't there. But I'm sure you've heard of a couple of those, Bill, and that's a place I'd like to start.
It all started years ago. There used to be these commercials with Larry King where he would talk about ginsana and garlic and all of these other items, which were, I'm sure, probably good for you, but they didn't necessarily. If you just ate a bit of garlic in your meals, you'd probably get the same effect, I'm
I
sure.
really like that observation. I get that question a lot, just kind of going off topic here about whether or not people should take multivitamins or whether or not they should take this supplement or that supplement. Well, research aside, because there really isn't a lot of research for that kind of stuff, but I am a big believer that if you eat well, if you eat right, assuming you don't have some type of medical condition, there aren't a lot of supplements that you really need. But I've got a little list here of those things that we mentioned before. The first one up is that Garcinia cambrosia. That's a really interesting one. I've had patients very, very recently who are taking that. The funny thing about that one is that most of the positive weight negative effects were actually seen in animals. Of human studies, the data is quite conflicted. Uh, but when there were successful human studies, and then we look back and kind of pooled them all together and tried to decide what the overall effect was, we're talking about 2 or 3 pounds weight loss over weeks. So I guess you have to decide as a consumer, is that something you want to be spending your money on? Is that really going to make a difference for you in your life?
I was going to say, you might just cut some calories and get a much better benefit and actually save on the grocery bill. We have to take a short break, but we've got more coming up with Russell Singleton, physician assistant from Tripp Family Medicine here in Twin Falls. He's got a few more details on some of these other promises being made, and maybe in some cases being made with the best intentions, but not always being able to carry things through. You're listening to News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. Better Health on Top Story with Bill Colley as well. Our studio guest is physician assistant Russell Singleton. He's joining us from Tripp Family Medicine in Twin Falls, Idaho. They're located on Fillmore Street across from the old post office. Hey, while we're doing this, maybe we should also point out as well, Russell, that they can get in touch with people at the office any number of ways, especially in the days of social media.
Absolutely. Give us a call, 933-4400. We're on Facebook. We have what's it called? A Twitter tag, hashtag Dr. Tripp. But definitely come check us out. Connect with us.
I was going to say, in this day and age, a lot of times, if someone has a comment or question, they can almost email it, and you can get them a response. As long as they're not in a death type situation, or whether they're threatened with something like that, some issue that they have, they're not feeling well or whatever. Quick email to the office, they can get a response.
Well, we've handled a lot of little emergencies in the office. Now we're not an emergency room, so if you feel like it's the life or death thing, we encourage you to go to the ER. But we stitch people up all the time. Chest pain, other things that you think you might go to the ER. You don't want to wait around 3 or 4 hours. Definitely give us a call. Absolutely.
I was going to say, we've been talking a little bit about dietary supplements and the like. and the fact that a lot of these are being promoted by people who seem to be authorities. And you shared one with us in the last segment of the program, and of course, disappointing results coming out of the lab on it. You got a few more though, because it seems there's no end to these things
Yeah,
anymore.
and unfortunately, or fortunately, it's more bad news actually. The next one up on the chopping block are the raspberry ketones. There are no human studies for raspberry ketones, none. At least some of these other ones do show a modest weight loss effect in humans, but this one is totally bunk. Maybe in rats or in isolated rat fat cells, there are some metabolic changes, but as far as human studies, there aren't any. So definitely pass on that one. The next two up are kind of interesting, and there actually is some evidence here. The green coffee bean and/or green tea extract. There are a lot of antioxidants. The green coffee bean has this substance called chlorogenic acid that can be healthy. Um, Not a whole lot of studies, except in green tea. There actually are quite a few human studies. We're still looking at only 4 to 5 pounds, though. So effective, yeah, probably. Uh, would I call it a miracle, a wonder drug, the next big thing? Definitely not. The green coffee bean does have some other benefits, lower blood pressure. Green tea can help reduce fat around the belly, which medically is the most dangerous fat. But I can't help but think, Bill, if it really isn't just a lot of caffeine too, that these two substances share in common. Any other weight loss supplement you're going to pull off the shelf probably has a massive amount of caffeine in it, 150, maybe 200 milligrams per dose.
It gets you moving, right? And then that's the point. You move and you burn calories.
Yeah, and caffeine independently can increase metabolism. It can increase um, fat burning by 20, 30% even. But yeah, I definitely feel more motivated to move around when I've had a little bit of caffeine. So in summary, I do want to move on to pharmaceuticals that can be helpful. But as far as supplements go, there really isn't anything that I'm going to spend my money on. And so in the clinic, when people want to know about this kind of stuff, I really can't give them anything that's worth their while.
I was going to say it reminds me of the days of the old movies with the patent medicine salesman, and of course we regulated that. But a lot of these things, the only reason that they're being sold is because they're actually harmless. I would assume when you come right down to it, they're not doing any harm other than maybe people's wallets.
Yeah, for the most part, the FDA can. They've got what's called GRAS, GRAS, generally recognized as safe, and a lot of these supplements, even though they're not intended to diagnose or treat any medical condition, as it says right on the bottle, they are generally recognized as safe. However, I, side effect free is another story. There's one over the counter called Orlistat that used to be by prescription, and without being too I can't think of the word in English for some reason. We speak a lot of Spanish in the clinic, and I'm thinking of the Spanish word, but um, there are some pretty significant side effects with Orlistat. Suffice it to say that you don't want to be taking it unless you've got an extra pair of pants with you
Yeah.
at all times. So let's just leave that one there.
Yeah, that'll make sense. I think people can understand that. Very, very well put and very delicate. Can you take a quick
Thank
telephone
you.
call?
Absolutely.
I believe we have a caller with us. I've got two lines going. One may have just rolled over. Yeah, that's what we have happening. Occasionally that happens. You're on the air, by the way, with Russell Singleton from Trip Family Medicine.
What do you think of this velocity and power blend? I'd just like to hear an answer from you.
Velocity and Power Blend. I'm not sure I recognize that by the name. Is there any more information?
Yep, he's gone.
Oh, okay. Well, I think I'll answer that in general terms. I'm not aware of the exact product to which he's referring, but I would make a pretty healthy wager that if you turn that package around and looked on the ingredient list, you're going to find caffeine.
And I would also say, if you haven't heard of it, I mean, if the medical professionals are not hearing about these yet, then it's not likely that you got the medical journals in last week and they had this breakthrough all over the cover and stories about it. So
No, good point.
yeah,
If a weight loss drug comes out that really does change or could change the world, you're going to hear about it on the front page. It's not going to come in through the back door. It's not going to be your neighbor that has this business opportunity that wants you to go out and recruit some other people. Definitely not.
you were talking, of course, about these supplements and some of the other. I guess these are prescription medicines that are coming along too, as well.
There actually is or there are a couple of really exciting things that I wanted to talk about. I'll not use any brand names here because we don't want to um, make people think that we are partial because we're certainly not. We treat everyone individually, and in a lot of folks, medications aren't appropriate. They have hypertension, they've got diabetes, and it's just not safe. It's not a good idea for them. But there's one called lorcaserin that I've started using. It is taken twice a day. It is by prescription, pretty new. It does help to reduce appetite, and we're looking at 7 to 10% of body mass lost over the course of a year. That's pretty significant. That can be 10, 15, 20 pounds for an individual. There's another one called liraglutide that is actually injectable. It was used previously for diabetes, enormously successful for controlling blood sugar. And we realized at the same time that people were losing 10, 15, 20 pounds, which does equate, as far as the studies are concerned, to about 10% body mass. And so it was recently rebranded and redistributed and now available strictly for weight loss.
I had an endocrinologist actually prescribe one time two, and said, you've got to take these in conjunction. One of them, I think, is called Kismia or something like that with a Q. And there was a second one that she said, if you do these together and you have to do these in these, she measured the doses and said, this will work for you. Take this before you basically eat your lunch every day.
Yeah, that first one, Qsymia, I think is what you're referring to, is actually a repackaging of two old drugs, phentermine and topiramate. And individually and together, these medications can be used to help curb appetite and stimulate weight loss. Phentermine, yeah, I'm glad you bring that up, Bill. That's very, very common. It is a stimulant. It can cause elevated blood pressure, anxiety, insomnia, um, headaches. Not appropriate for everyone, but yeah, it can be very effective. And for certain folks, we do prescribe phentermine. And I had an individual who, after a month, lost 15 pounds, and she's going to make it to probably 40, 50 pounds easily on just phentermine, along with diet and exercise, though. But this other one, topiramate, it is actually an anti-seizure drug. I use it for migraine prevention. We can use it to kind of help stabilize mood sometimes. But yeah, it is weight negative, is what we say, and it has been shown to help people lose weight.
Do you have some other things on the list too as well?
As far as supplements, there are a couple that I wanted to get to. We might not have time to today. There's a fiber supplement called glucomannan that actually seems to be the most effective of all the nutraceuticals, of all the food supplements. It's very similar to what's readily available over the counter in Metamucil, which is psyllium husk. You add water to that, kind of gels in the cup. It's got this great orange flavor, and not only can it help improve digestion, it can help improve regularity of bowel movements, but it kind of expands in the stomach, and it can help uh, achieve satiety. Now, I would offer a word of caution there. I would never recommend that as a meal replacement. And things like that, laxatives, fiber supplements, that can get out of hand, and it can be abused quite easily, especially by young people. So I would give that caution. But for someone who's on a calorie restricted diet, they're really close to their goal, but they just have those hunger pangs. A little bit of Metamucil, a couple of teaspoons or maybe a tablespoon in water, actually can do really well. Besides benefiting your gut quite a bit.
And you've got another one too as well today?
Well, actually, that rounds out our list today. But as far as the pharmaceuticals go, I wanted to emphasize one more, I think, and that's one that combines a medication called bupropion. Now, bupropion ha- has been used for a lot of things. Smoking cessation. It's actually an antidepressant medication. But we talked a couple of weeks ago about how one of the first steps we go through is assessing not only metabolic issues, but what we call comorbidities, other medical conditions, other medications that you're on. And a lot of antidepressants will cause weight gain. Bupropion, on the other hand, will not only not cause weight gain, but it will help you to lose weight. And I think it is effective for controlling depression as well. So If you're on an antidepressant, don't stop taking it without talking to your doctor or to your PA. But Wellbutrin, or excuse me, bupropion, as the generic name, might be an appropriate choice.
I was going to say, you talk about a lot of these drugs. Sometimes a drug. I was told this by a pharmaceutical salesman one time that, for instance, certain drugs were that were created to deal with things like your cholesterol levels actually help reduce plaque in some of your veins in the brain, reducing the chance of stroke. And that was just a side benefit. No one had actually thought about that. They were looking to reduce cholesterol levels, but sometimes you'll see a different benefit from a drug that comes along like that.
You would be very surprised, Bill, how many medications we have that were not originally studied for the purpose that they're now used. We can use Viagra as a great example. That was never intended to treat erectile dysfunction. It was actually designed to treat and tested to treat a condition called pulmonary artery hypertension. But surprise, surprise, during the trial, there were frequent reports of improved erectile function. And so, guess what? Now, some years later, we've got the little blue pill.
I was going to say, sometimes there are, when you're testing, I would imagine a drug, there are side effects people see and say, well, we're not going to go down this road. But it's a bit like, I think one of my professors told me one time, antiperspirants and deodorants. They had come up with something that actually stopped people from perspiring, and they couldn't figure out how to market it. And then someone said, aha, antiperspirant deodorant.
That happens a lot in the medical world. And sometimes it's really for the better. Sometimes we do, it's serendipity. We come across something that really is effective, but we had no idea that's what it was going to do. But I think it's also important to know, I guess, to answer that question or to address that concern, how many drugs don't make it to market? If you look back 10, 20 years, we're talking like, I think it's less than 10% of drugs actually showed some effect. Probably half of that are actually still on the market today. So we do go through a lot. That research is expensive, and I don't really. I wish medications didn't cost so much, but if you understood how much it costs to study this stuff and to make sure it is safe and effective before it comes to market, it at least provides some perspective.
It's we're still a long way from the day where, I believe in one of the Star Trek movies, the doctor gave a woman on kidney dialysis a pill, and it completely. She got up and was dancing around afterward. So
I'm not afraid to say I'm a big Star Trek fan. I'll admit that right now.
Two of us. Well, thank you for coming by today. I guess we'll see the doctor next week, and then we'll see you again in a couple of weeks.
Absolutely.
Russell Singleton is a physician assistant, and of course, he is with Tripp Family Medicine here in Twin Falls, located on Fillmore Street across from the old post office. Well, the main post office, we should put it that way. I don't know if we could really call it old or not. We do want to point out, of course, that next week you'll have an opportunity to question the doctor. He's going to be talking about bleeding gums and the like and what that could mean about your health and some things that you might be concerned about. In fact, he'll bring along someone who'll be able to directly, from a periodontal perspective, directly address that. In the meantime, we've got news coming up next from Fox. It's 9 o'clock. Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310 KLIX.